You got Scott's gift?
Yeah, we got you something, Scott.
You got what?
Yeah, we got you something.
You guys brought me a gift?
Yeah.
Why are you guys getting me gifts?
It's a little fun. It's a little fun one.
This is weird.
Here.
What the hell, really?
Scratch
Have you ever
away.
done a scratcher? No?
Dude, it's been forever. What do? I just start scratching all these things? Like, is
Yeah,
the
it
whole thing-
might be distracting for you, but
No.
$5 million, you know?
$5 million.
I was feeling lucky. I was like, went to the gas station just to fill up before driving over here.
All
I
right.
was like, all right, actually, Scott needs one of these. I feel like this is the day.
All right, what do I do?
So
So,
I think the winning numbers are on the top.
Okay.
And then like each one of the bottom guys is a multiple, you know?
yeah.
Oh, you've done this before, huh?
Yeah, I've done it a few times.
Any luck?
No, but the Powerball supposedly is like, was that you? You were telling me about that.
Yes.
The Powerball is billions. It's crazy.
Oh, I
right
got
now.
it. So,
1.5 billion.
so you just, if you match the numbers, then you win the money.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever that happens to be.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. Like, this is why I don't gamble ever.
I know we
However,
didn't gamble in Vegas, so I was like,
dude,
all
I know,
right,
I
you got to
hate it. It
get,
makes
you
me
got to get
sick.
this.
I'll lose $100 at the, I'll lose $100 at the blackjack table and I'll be
Yeah.
sick for a week. Like like, what the hell? What did I do that for? Plus, I feel like half the time I'm confused by it. No, still not winning.
Oh, nothing.
Still not winning.
We've been producing some of the stuff for BioPro.
Yes.
What's that been like as you're kind of doing that and going through?
Man, I came into contact with the BioPro guys through sort of the industry. They were trying to do some new things. I don't know. You tell me
Let me
if
see
I
if you want.
I don't- I
Yeah,
don't
keep
know if
going.
I
Though.
want.
Keep going.
I've done a lot of different things with supplements over the days, and then over my days, and then the last probably 10 years is just something like, dude, you don't need to be doing all these things. Did I win or what?
We're halfway through and there's no luck so far, but
All right.
everything you're saying is awesome.
A couple of my buddies were kind of popping up as guys using the BioPro stuff, and I reached out to them out there in the industry. I'm like, dude, what's your experience been? What's going on with this? And there were 3 of them specifically that are usually pretty, I would say, no, we got nothing.
We got nothing.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to win,
Yeah. Next time.
like to play. I thought you guys were fucking with me. Like,
I
it's a
even
fake
asked
lottery
the guy,
ticket.
I'm like, hey, is this a good one?
I feel
what's
like this is a fake lottery ticket. So I was looking at it, you guys are fucking with me right now. You guys didn't really give me a lottery ticket. Like, it's going to say I won $5 million. I'm going to be all excited. You go,
That would have been hilarious.
just
I've
kidding.
seen those on Amazon.
Yeah,
those are like, that'd be the worst gift ever.
Yeah. I reached out to some friends. I said, hey, how's your experience been with this? And these guys were all sort of in the jiu-jitsu space, in the BJJ space. And, really in tune with their bodies, probably, in the 40-ish year old range. And I was seeing them sort of in their other videos, like their other social media, their other photos, whatever. I'm like, yeah, it looks like this guy's working out. Like he's clearly cleaned up his diet. He's working out a little harder. They just looked a little fresher, looked a little bit more in shape. And I just chalked it up as cool. They're doing the jiu-jitsu a little bit more regularly. Things are going good. So then the BioPro stuff pops up. I saw one of them specifically just sort of kind of propping it up in one of his social media posts. And I reached out to him and said, so what's going on, man? What's your experience with this been? He goes, dude, it's been amazing. I've dropped like 15 pounds since I've started it. I also stopped drinking. I started a little bit more jiu-jitsu, but part of the reason I can do the more jiu-jitsu is the recovery I'm getting from this. This was like the big thing for him.
They're taking it before?
Yeah, they're doing. So there's 2 formulas that these guys are taking. One is at night, so they call it like a nighttime formula, and then there's a morning formula. It's super simple, and there's basically it's a blend of what they refer to as growth factors, and so you can find out all about this stuff if you go to BioProtein Tech. You can follow them on Instagram at BioProtein Tech or bioproteintech.com.
That's where I've seen them.
Yeah, that's the best place to go because there's a lot going into these products, and it's kind of tough to kind of keep up with all this stuff. But they have some ingredients that they're using and they're blending together, and it's just a liquid formula. You hold it under your tongue at night before you go to bed for about 90 seconds. Best to do like that on an empty stomach, like just before you go to bed. By the way, it has a little melatonin in it, so it helps you kind of get into a little bit of a deeper sleep.
Got to
Seems
get you
pretty
on
easy.
that.
Yeah, so if you're looking for
Brown belt,
You
that?
get jacked.
Yeah.
well, 2 things with that. And then, so if you get into a deeper sleep, that actually puts you in a better position for the morning formula, which has other things and that other growth factors in terms of when people think of this, if you've played around in the peptide game before, you might think of it that way. Just signaling things to be turned on to help you be more efficient. at the things that you should be doing, like producing hormones, like recovery, and just kind of balancing out the things that it takes to perform at a high level. Anyway, like I was very skeptical of this, but I reached out to the BioPro guys and was like, hey, I heard about you. This is what they've been telling me. So they sent me a 30-day supply of each. And within days, I was already feeling some impacts. Now, again, I've done a lot of things. I've disclosed a lot of those things even on the podcast before from I am on HRT. I have done anabolics in the past. And it's been a long time, but in the past, but I've experienced things and I understand how, you can very immediately feel a difference in a substance. And that was the only thing I changed in my sort of routine. Immediately I was sleeping better and I knew that was huge. Like right off the bat, deeper sleep, kind of some weird dreams, to kind of start.
Some lucid dreams.
That was a thing, right? And then, yes, some very lucid dreams. Waking up the next day going, dude, I just slept the entire night. I didn't wake up to take a piss. I wasn't rolling around like kind of fidgety. Those were the first things. And then the next thing that happened is the recovery from my workouts. And you don't notice that right away. That takes about a week, sometimes as many as 2 weeks before you kind of look back and you go, wow, like I am definitely feeling better sooner. And I'm actually feeling more drive to get back into the gym to start working out again. Whereas before I was like, fuck, I'm sore. And like when you're sore and you're not comfortable or that aching shoulder or that aching ankle or knee or back thing kind of creeps up on you, it's discouraging and it may, you may lack a little bit of that motivation to get in, right? And then the last thing that happened for me was not the last, because there's just been these compounding kind of ongoing effects, but one of the things that really showed up is like my libido, my sex drive went through the fucking roof. And I usually don't have an issue with that anyway, but this was marked. Like Cece's looking at me like, dude, what is wrong with you? Kind of thing. At the same time,
stop taking that.
At the same time, she's like, she's not complaining. She's like, what in the hell? So
as long as it didn't backfire.
No. So
she ordered you another case.
So like all kind of good things happening. And then, again, it only took a few days for me to start feeling like some good stuff. Couple weeks in, things are markedly different. And then, within that first month, like I'm dropping body fat. I haven't really adjusted my workouts. I may be working out a little harder, right? Because I'm recovering a little bit better. I'm not feeling as sore and those aches and pains are kind of going away. The best part about it for me in this, like I played in the peptide game before. There's needles and syringes.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any of that shit. There's no needles. It's all liquid formula. It's oral. So I don't have to mess with any of that. For people that have been on some other stuff, they know that there can be issues. Like obviously dealing with needles is an issue. Yeah. There's also dealing with doctor's appointments. You don't have to deal with those. This is all legal, doesn't take a prescription.
It sounds pretty effective.
It's been extraordinarily effective.
Been scrolling on my feed a lot, looking at all these memes about, events that's been going on in the world. I happened to come across a couple of ads with you on it.
Yeah, the ads are working, are they?
They got
ads
hit.
are working.
Yeah, targeted.
You're talking about the silent ads?
Talking about the silent ads.
Yeah, I love the silent guys.
It's crazy because I know recently I got into some altercation about a month ago, and I lost my phone in the process. It's an iPhone 14, really expensive phone. Pinged it. It was in some part of the city, and it was there for a couple of days in a bad part of town. The next thing you know, completely shuts off, goes black. Barely, I would say 2-3 days ago.
It popped back up.
And it's all the way in China.
Let's go.
Is that right?
It's all the way in China. It made its way all the way to China, and it's just pinging from a random part of the mountain.
On the mountain in China?
In like some town. I zoomed in, I saw the streets, saw a couple of shops, and then I just said, forget this.
Your phone got trafficked from San Francisco, California to China.
Some part of Eastern China.
Stuff like that is an industry. It's like we weren't here very long on this trip, and our place got broken into. They broke through the glass window. It literally took them 8 seconds to steal 2 iMacs off from behind our front counter. They knew they were there. They threw one of those big river rocks through. The glass hadn't even stopped falling from the door before the guy was fully hoodied, gloved up, whatever, and running through the door. Like they hit like 3 or 4 other spots on the avenue that same night. But that was the thing. Like I kept looking for those Macs to pop up somewhere, and I just gave up on them after a while. But that's basically what I was said. I go, you keep watching this, they're going to wind up like in Eastern Europe somewhere, and they're gonna pop up somewhere. Yeah, the silent guys, and that's a really good that's a really, really good lead into this. I'm glad you asked me about that. I love the silent guys. They're a local company, and they've really been working hard. It's a small company that produces these Faraday cages for your electronic items, your personal electronic items, whether it be a laptop or your cell phone or even your key-fob. And the thing that got me turned on to them first was actually an ad. I saw an ad from them, and I thought this is a really interesting product because I understand the vulnerability that my electronic devices have. With enough time, resource, and equipment, anything can be hacked. I mean, you going back to news stories and everything else, you got the Russians hacking our election. Are they? Aren't they? Are we? Or there's all this.
Let's argue about it.
Yeah, God, I won't. I won't, but
we might.
But I understand the vulnerabilities that exist there. And so I saw that, and I actually bumped into Aaron, who's the CEO out there. Actually calls himself the what's the term, like
the chief.
Yeah, he's the chief
silent.
Yeah, he's the chief disconnection officer.
There you go.
I think that's what he calls himself. Yeah, the chief disconnection officer. I bumped into him at SHOT Show. His booth was a couple booths behind some other buddies of mine out there. And we literally ran into one another at the show. And I looked up, I was looking down at my phone and I bumped into him, looked up and I go, "Oh, you're the dude." And we just started talking. And then as it turns out, they're just from over the hill here in the Santa Cruz area. Started out with making these little bags to protect because his dad started this, and he saw a need, like where people were going to have to ultimately compromise their privacy and their security at some point. Also, their autonomy from the electronic devices. And it might be really cool to have a bag that would basically, you could put your electronic device in and effectively it goes silent. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out.
Do these bags have locks on them?
No. So it's not a lockable bag. So think about this. It's basically, it's made out of a material, and they're very sleek, very good looking pieces of, like baggage, if you will. I've got a backpack, sleeves. I have a sling, and the things I'm talking about are like a sleeve. So think about the typical laptop sleeve you would put your laptop in before you threw it in your backpack or your briefcase or whatever. It looks just like that. It just has a little fold over flap, right? And once it's in there, it's completely enveloped in this material that makes it invisible to anything. So that's EMP, electromagnetic pulse, NFC, GPS, anything. Nothing can. It's literally like it's invisible.
It's walking around with your electronics with a peace of mind,
completely secure,
no matter where you go.
Have you seen the ad of Aaron in NYC?
Yes, where he's walking.
So good.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah, those ads, like, I think there's a little drone footage in there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much in New York City, like downtown square, and asking people like, "Hey, put your phone in this bag now. Call your girlfriend or call your boyfriend." They call him and they doesn't go through.
Right.
I'm like, yes, that's like.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing because people are like, they've seen these ads. So you were mentioning you've seen the ad with me in it because I immediately knew. I was intrigued by this company. I got to know Aaron. Then Aaron came down for a podcast. We did a fairly lengthy podcast on the product, but also just around the premise of why it's important for people to have these things. And maybe not everybody sees the value in it, but really there were 3 pillars that they're working on as a company. And one is privacy, obviously trying to protect your own stuff. And I think it's high time we think about this as individuals and taking our privacy back. We've literally given it away. By putting all of our information into these devices. I mean, think about it. Everything from your social security number to your tax ID, to your bank account information, to your nude photos, passwords, your kids' photos, all of their information. Your wife or your husband's information is also in there too. So it's not just a gateway into your own life, it's into their life. So there's that, but there's also the security piece. So now that it's in there, you don't want people having it. Like, what could they do once they have access to it? Obviously that brings in a whole, I personally had my stuff hacked, and all of a sudden the next thing I know, I've got my credit cards are maxed out. They're shut down. Same with my bank account. Like, it was a total nightmare I had to deal with. And the last thing is actually a health component, and protecting yourself. I think there's 2 things. One, physiologically or physically from the radiation and wavelengths that come off of these devices, the microwaves, if you will, like keeping it stuck in your pocket as a dude with right next to your jewels is not necessarily a good practice. We know that over time. So there's things to think about there. And people might be go, come on, man, that's a little bit of a stretch. But there's another component, and I think and that's just the mental and emotional component of getting away from your fucking phone. Like just putting the phone into a bag. There's sort of a ritual about that. Like once it's in there, it's safe, it's secure. It's also away from me, and it's kind of locked up, so to speak. And I'm taking a break from my phone for the next few hours or for tonight or, whatever it is. Aside from protecting it from some person that wants to hack into it.
It's like going offline.
It's like you go totally offline. It makes you invisible. Yeah. And so I've heard people go, oh, but doesn't that make you so you can't use the phone? Yes. Makes it so I can't use the phone, which for me is a total bonus, right? But the other thing is like when you close your laptop, it's never off. It's constantly working. It can receive and send signals while it's in your bag, or while it's sitting on your desk, or while it's sitting in that coffee shop, or while you're sitting in the Uber, or while you're on the airplane using the open Wi-Fi network. Mm-hmm. All those things are potential gateways to having your stuff broken into and having your security and your privacy invaded. What's
interesting is the radiation part that you brought up. We have a family friend. She's a lot older, but we're media guys. I don't know anything about medical anything, but she says she has radiation sickness. So that means when we go around her, we have to put our phones on airplane mode so that there's no incoming signal, because when our phone goes off, she starts to get this weird headache and she starts to feel some kind of incoming connection. I don't know what that looks like, but based off her reaction, she's right. Because I'm sitting in the back seat or something, my phone goes off and all of a sudden she's like, whose phone's on? And it's just vibrating in my pocket.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I know. I think there's something to that. Like,
I've never heard of that in my life.
People, that's just it. Mm-hmm. So I think they're, from the outside looking in, people go, come on, man, that seems like a little bit of a stretch. Again, like out of sight, out of mind. If you don't know, then you don't know. And I get it. Oh, you're just, go ahead and put that tinfoil hat on and think whatever you want. That's ridiculous. That's not how I want to live my life. But the reality of it is some people do live that life. And there is technology out there. This is factual. There are a lot of agencies and there are a lot of individuals out there that maybe have very high risk or levels of risk for security that are now contracting with Silent as a company, whether it be their own personal security, the security of their team, the security of their asset, or national security in some levels. So, all the way down to, I know the U.S. Air Force is now using the product. And you think about that and all the technology that goes on there. They understand the concept of the Faraday cage and how this technology works.
Did you see the notification we got from vidIQ? Past 30 million views.
30 million views.
That's on YouTube.
Right.
TikTok is its own beast,
Instagram
is its own thing.
It's also weird to me still. Like it feels odd, but I also know what it took to get there. And yeah, when we start comparing and contrasting against like the TikTok game, people are like, dude, you're on TikTok? It's funny. Like I was at a wedding. It was last weekend. Yeah, it was last weekend. I was up in Grass Valley. I think we were just talking about this. This is actually a trip too. This is like one of my best high school friends, his daughter. We're having drinks after or whatever, and I'm trying to connect. There's a lot of high school people there, that I hadn't seen in a long time, which is also very weird for me because I really haven't kept in touch with a lot of people. And their kids are standing there, and one of them says to me, dude, you're the guy I saw on TikTok.
Did you ask him what clip?
I think I did. I don't remember what he said. Yeah. But then what that did was it's kind of started like this cascade of, you've seen this guy before. He talks about this stuff. Remember the one? Oh yeah, and the one girl says,
like, "Can we leave now?"
Oh, I saw the one with the dog with the headphones on, or that kind of stuff. Like it pops up, and I think that's so weird to me. Like, and my daughter, my oldest, my 21-year-old, will tell me that her friends, my shit pops up in their TikTok feed. I don't get on TikTok. I don't. I let you guys do that for me. I think it's something we should talk about. But when you guys send me stuff like, here, this one hit another 1 million views. Here's another 1 million views on this particular one. It's weird to me. and then when I just hearing the numbers, like, oh, that seems like a lot. I don't know though. But then I go to these events where people recognize me from TikTok. The kids do, and that's a little mind blowing to me. Just the reach, the magnitude at which you can reach just people in general. I really have a high amount of respect for it. It frustrates me to no end. Oftentimes it irritates me to no end at the same time. But how powerful like those platforms are in all of their different levels.
You break it down and it's really a testing pool, so you post a little soundbite in conversation. That's why this stuff works. It doesn't always have to be flashy, or your podcast doesn't need to look like a Netflix show, right? It's great to have the cameras, but what I mean is a trailer, right, of each episode. So like there's a little testing pool of a couple hundred people. And if they watch that video, then that testing pool doubles. And then those people get shown the video. And if they watch it, then that doubles. And it just keeps going, which is kind of like word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
If it's reliable, like you have a great product or service, people talk about it, more people talk about it, then it gets bigger and bigger. But this just happens on a scale like a telephone game where there's already, over 2 billion active users
they're
on.
Already there.
Yeah. So
like a ripple effect.
It's just a example of the type of conversations that you've had on the show. And then putting that into a medium where you can test it in front of a growing audience of people. And then some people react positively, some people react negatively, but the topics discussed are important enough and valuable enough to like circulate and have people watch and enjoy and share. So
the different types of content that we've had that do well in different spots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've kind of figured out like what does well in some spots and what doesn't do so well in others. And I think part of it is like, what do you want the theme to be on this particular channel or this particular platform versus another one? I think TikTok's a little bit more wide open, but it's also, TikTok seems to really like the dick and fart jokes or the little comedy pieces or their little like 5-second clips that are meaningless but are somehow entertaining to somebody versus Instagram, which is I found to be people want context, they want value there, they need and they want something that they can give their opinion on no matter what that opinion is, kind of thing versus the other thing, the TikTok platform is much different, that people are just throwing shit out there. It's a one-word response or whatever, where people will spend time like formulating long responses or long comments within and some of them are just wildly insightful. Some of them are wildly like, what are you even talking about? And some of them are like wildly negative. And it's crazy. That part still blows me. Like, we're spending this much time putting together like this nasty comment. Like, okay, man, like you could have just not said that and be fine. I'm like, it's fine. Like if that's what you want to do, but you're literally sitting around like, this is like 10, 12, 15 lines long of just going on and on and on. Like, wow, if you spent that much time here, this must be really important to you. Cool. I don't, I'd choose to respond or not respond, but they move on to the next one. How many more times during the day are they doing that? So this intrigues me going back to views and, where we get the most bang for our buck. Like you go over to YouTube, go back to the 30 million and how we do that and how it's been cut up. And same thing, their strategy to shorts versus the shorter form content versus obviously the much longer form stuff and how people interplay there. The thing that I've seen, which is interesting on the podcast front, is now you're seeing a bunch of content where people are seemingly on a podcast. Like they're not really on a podcast, they're like interviewing themselves, but they got a set of headphones on and they got the microphone in front of their face and it's like somebody has asked them a question and they're responding. So basically they're like trying to create the illusion that they're on a podcast because somehow that content seems to be interesting to the viewers, going back to the testing pools.
I've even seen like people running ads with the exact Joe Rogan back screen and they got the headphones and they set up the Shure mic and it's like you weren't on.
Yeah.
You weren't on Rogan, but they're talking, like they were and they run it as an ad. So it's completely like the talking head style, podcast style video. I actually love it because it is so much more relatable. So it can compete side by side with all these, fancy tits out or travel videos or puppy videos, because we all have thoughts in our head every single day. And the people that are kind of discussing those, open dialogue, if they're debates, that's awesome. There's like controversy, that's awesome. Like all the things that people are talking about in their own head that show up in the world or they get in arguments about on a daily basis, if those are discussed in depth and long form and little snippets are taken out of it, it competes with everything else. And we've seen that, right?
Yeah, which is interesting. Like, because when I first started, I was like, who's going to want to listen to this shit? Like, that was like, I had some serious confidence issues there. And also just like, this is uncharted territory. I have no idea. I just have a hunch. I think people might want to hear about some of this stuff. And then as we got into it, like we had big variety of people and subject matter and topics. And sometimes it gets a little bit more skewed or weighted towards one than the other. Obviously, we're working inside a genre, but it was never meant to be about just one thing, because that's boring to me. It seems very... I like dimensional stuff. So,
Gio knows this too. It is not at all a strategy-based approach to growth. Like what you've taken is, I want to talk to this guy. I want to talk to this girl. I want to learn these things. This is what I'm interested about. We could go reach out to all the YouTubers and try to get them on.
That's a strategy.
Yeah, it's just not, you haven't done it like this. So it is cool to see validation, right? And the stuff that you think is important.
Yeah, right? It's been very cool that way.
Authentic standpoint. You're talking about what you like and what benefits you, and then you find people that relate online, and then they run with it. They end up loving it. They end up sharing it. Next thing you know, you got yourself a podcast.
Yeah, and I feel, it feels a little strange that it 30 million views. Comparing and contrasting, I've never kept score on this thing. Like, I do look at analytics in terms of comparing against ourselves and what we've been doing. That is definitely a strategy, and there's tactics there, but not comparing against somebody else, because I do feel like, for the most part, what we are doing it is sort of novel, particularly in kind of the genres we played in. On the whole, I mean, there are other people out there in the, say, fitness, firearms, fighting, preparedness space that have podcasts. I'm not saying like what we're doing is totally unique. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, I see when I look at it, or when I listen to those things, or I see those things, or people send them to me, it seems to be very, very focused in one area, and somebody's trying to be an expert or an authority, and they want to have the other experts and authorities on it. I think it's great. I listen to several podcasts like that, but the ones I enjoy the most are the ones that will catch me off guard with somebody I've never heard of before, that's talking about some topic that I don't know if I'm interested in it or not, or I may know a lot about it or a very little bit about it, or I've heard this person has a really interesting take on it, and they just get into a conversation. Those are the ones that people I talk about on the show. Like, I go on a walk every night. I get my steps in every night. I take the dog out, and oftentimes I'm listening to a podcast, and I listen to a lot of different subject matter. It keeps it interesting for me. I don't obsess about any one thing, any one subject, or any one topic. To me, that's boring. Also, I think it becomes a problem, because then you start getting all this information on the same topic all the time. And ultimately what you wind into is like, you find conflict in it, like what you're hearing. And then all of a sudden somebody's right and somebody's wrong. That was never my intention in listening to or both hosting a podcast or listening to podcasts. Like, I'm not listening to stuff to validate my own feelings, or, to confirm, for confirmation bias. I'm not listening. I'm literally listening because I'm like, I want to hear this person's take. And I think intuitively, people do feel that. It's just the response they have to the take that's really wild to me. Like, again, like the super negative, like nasty, comment, like, okay, dude, you have a different take, but like, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. Like, somehow I personally offended or accosted you through a 15-second clip from a 60-minute or more podcast or whatever else. Like, I think it says a lot about you, a little bit less about maybe what the subject matter was. Like, you might want to look at that a little bit and examine that. Like, why are you so fired up about this?
Funny thing about that is those people that are doing that are doing it from like their burner accounts. It's not even their personal.
Oh, there's nothing drives me more crazy than the people hiding behind a meme page and then doing that. Like, I understand that some people have, I think there's a lot of reasons for having a meme page, right? There's a lot of reasons. But what I'm seeing now, particularly in like the firearms space, is people hiding behind those so they can't be personally canceled.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a good point.
and like, okay, you're trying to protect yourself. That's great. But if all you're doing is talking shit or, no, let me put it this way. What is the point? Like, maybe that's more of the question. Like, and that's the question I ask. Like, so when I see this stuff and I get a little emotional about it, like, I'm like, God, this guy is just totally nasty. He just beating up everybody out
Well, you're
there.
feeling the freaking negativity that he's feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And so I'm like, so my thing is like, I literally step back and go, what am I missing here? Like, what's going on here? What is the missing piece that I'm not seeing that maybe he's seeing or she, whoever's behind this page is seeing, that I could take something of value away from and kind of examine a little bit differently. And I got to be honest, I have a really tough time doing that just because it seems to always stem from this negativity.
Dude, if you're having the best day of your life, are you going to comment some negative crap if something's slightly? No.
No, I literally, like, it's interesting. I've seen a few, like, there's a few, but I've seen them and they tend to pop up about the same time. It's usually like on Friday night or it's on Saturday. And I'm like, sometimes I want to respond. And other times it's just like, oh man, like, I'm not even gonna give this shit oxygen because this is dumb. But the point of this being like, maybe you've had a few too many drinks. Maybe you want to put the drink down or put the phone down, one of the two, because this isn't a really good look. But again, if you can hide behind, a burner account or whatever, an anonymous account, it's much easier to do that in a day and age where people think that they can and should just say whatever the fuck they want, whenever they want. It's my freedom of speech. It's my First Amendment right. Yeah, well, the First Amendment also gives you the right to shut the fuck up. That's also a take.
Throw that phone in a Faraday bag.
Yeah, just go
Turn
back
it
to
off.
silent talk. Yeah.
What would you say to people that like are struggling with that? Because when you start, like if you do start on YouTube, for example, if you reach a certain point, you're going to be getting a lot of those comments, and especially on early channels, because if you're saying something and you don't have a backing or you don't have people that actually tune in and find value, YouTube is going to wait until people, it's the other thing, as an early account, you scroll, you see the viral videos, you see the big channels. And if you stay on YouTube, for example, for 30, 40 minutes, well, now you're getting to some of the newer channels. Now YouTube's testing out some of the smaller channels. So you're already dealing with somebody that's been scrolling for an hour.
It's a really good point.
And then they hit your video. Like, are they going to be in the best mood? Probably not.
Especially if whatever narrative that was being tested was being put out there. Like, what are we talking about now for 30, 40 videos on YouTube to, from these bigger accounts that are drawing all this attention. And then all of a sudden I get hit with, this thing that, I'm fired up. I'm charged up from the last one.
So it's hard to start, but then of course, once you get bigger to the point where you're at, it's like, there's always people.
Yeah, there's always going to be that. I think, I don't think, I've said before, and I just said it here, it's just like, I don't really pay that much attention to it. But at the same time, there's value in what we're talking about, right? And that, like, where is this coming from? Like, what am I missing? Like, okay, like I hurt somebody's feelings, or were that person's feelings hurt way before they ever got to me? Or this post or that post or whatever it is somebody else's that's posting, and this was the one they decided to vent on. Or do they vent on multiple posts? Or is this this is what they do? This is the whole point of their page, or just go out and talk shit or be a dick or, stir the pot, right? And I get people get off on that, but you're making a really good point. It's like, how does it get to this? Maybe people are just tired of seeing certain things being favored. And maybe the impression is that favor is like, this is how this particular group of people feel all the time. And they're all saying the same thing. But if you're never seeing the other side of it, because the platform that you've decided to consume this content isn't ever showing you the other side of it, yes, that could give you a skewed view of what the reality is or the perception is of the opinions as they stack up against one another. And I think that's very easily missed. Again, that's going back to like, what am I missing here? Something's up. Like, why is it seemingly all like this right now? And that's not something that anybody at this table or anybody that's got an account, say on Instagram or whatever, has any control over whatsoever. Even if you're saying not interested, that just means they're going to test you with something else. They're going to throw something else at you. And I see people out there right now getting very, very frustrated about this. And I mean, this is the whole concept of like, I'm being shown all this stuff all the time, or now my stuff isn't being shown at all, like as a company or as a business. I mean, it seems every day, the trend is right now, seems to be, again, because that's what we're seeing, that people are getting canceled or zucked, one of the two. Either accounts are being hacked or accounts are being not shown to non-followers. So you're not going to continue to get the reach that you may have had before, particularly if it has anything to do with firearms parts or firearms talk or anything like that. And people are very frustrated by this. And I think it might be leading into a little bit of that negativity. And I would say to people like, I have a couple takes on this. One would be, well, you should have seen this coming. Like, so how upset you get about it, I think you need to examine a little bit. Like, why are you as upset as you are? If you think it's a violation of your First Amendment rights, well, consider it's also the prerogative of the privately held company or whatever to, the corporation to make the decision. You decided to play the game. You're in the game. You might not like all the rules, and the rules could be changed, and you don't have any control over that. I don't think it's cool, but at the same time, it's America, and they can do whatever they want. So I'll probably get a lot of hate for that. I do think suppression of speech, and while doing that at the same time, driving another narrative on the other side and only showing that, I think that would be a violation of free speech at some level too. And I don't know at what level, but I think like what you're doing is you're manipulating things. And I don't think any responsible person that really truly believes in their right to free speech or their First Amendment right really thinks that's okay. So maybe that's the take on that. You
had a term for this, right? You know what I'm talking about? The doghouse?
Yeah, the doghouse. Yeah, getting people in the doghouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are going there right now to the extent where like they're not allowed to show anything on their stories anymore. They're not allowed to do lives. One of my buddies has just reached out the other day. He's like, Instagram just decided to shut down my ability to do answer questions and do polls or things like that in the stories anymore. Like they're picking the things. And to me, like, while that might not be a violation of their First Amendment right, in a sense that it is theoretically, because what you're doing is you're taking away my ability to have my talk while giving somebody else the ability to have theirs. And while that might not be, again, by definition of the law, a violation of your First Amendment right, it is pretty fucked up. So I see people getting very frustrated with that, and also just being like, they're not sure what to do now, because how do I get my message out there? I think one of the mistakes is that they've made, I'm kind of now starting to run with this, but one of the mistakes they've made is like isolating themselves to that platform and just using that, not diversifying themselves in a different kind of way, so that they get their message out in different ways to different people, so that I think it's very easy for like a company like the one we're talking about to cancel people one at a time. You've almost made it too easy for them. Yeah. Like, okay, now you're silenced. Now what do you do? Oh, we're just going to move to another platform. Really? What? Which one? Oh, I'm going to go to Twitter. Okay, go to Twitter. You got to start all over again. And by the way, as people are moving over there, things are going to change there too. So, keeping up with the thing, if you keeping up with the algorithms, keeping up with the process of evolution, over there, going back to what's being shown for the first 30 or 40 minutes before they finally get to yours, because yours is the new account that doesn't have as many followers, all that stuff. Like, you're going to have to go through the whole frustration again, and that's fine until it changes too.
Yep. And I mean, we've done a pretty good job at monitoring monetization policies, different policies, because they're constantly updated, for example, on YouTube, on Instagram. And so, yeah, there is First Amendment right, but also you're dealing with, company. Yeah, that has a privacy policy. So, or different policies in place that constantly change, by the way.
Yeah.
So if they want to make it really hard for a specific industry, whether that's firearms or anything, they can at any given time. They can change the policy so long as you're using the platform. They can go ahead and block content, shadow ban content, remove your ability to advertise from your account, remove your ability to answer questions. So it is exactly that, like being adaptable to different things. But also, so many people just post on Instagram or start a Twitter because other people are doing it and they look like they're successful because they have followers. They
get a bunch of likes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the initial question is my target audience on where are they? Right? Like, where are they? And a lot of times they're not on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can be much more effective going after exactly where they are. The benefit is, though, you can reach millions of people, which you can't do door to door, within the time frame that, for example, Ironsights has done on YouTube. But, there's so many options when it comes to that. So I wouldn't get discouraged too much about Instagram. It's just time to learn another skill, right? To implement into your business so that you can adapt, because you're going to deal with it sooner or later. Whether you tap Instagram's resource and you're extremely successful on that platform, and now you need to go to YouTube or, whatever might happen to your account, right?
It's never a one-way path. That's why you said it's important to diversify. You get on multiple platforms, and it's not easy managing all these algorithms and keeping up with the policies. So, I mean, that's why you gotta have a solid team behind you and make sure you have everything checked.
Yeah, I think there's a few things to talk about there, just in terms of, again, how it's been done. One of the things that we've been really careful about, or I personally have been really careful about, I was just having a conversation the other day about a potential partnership with a company that makes a very controversial gun part, right? Firearms part. I'll just leave it at that. If in case you're wondering a little bit more, in California, we basically cannot have these things.
No.
So the thing that I'm talking about. So, and my thing was like, look, we have to both realize what this might mean, right? So like, what exactly would we be looking for in this partnership? How exactly might we be utilizing or talking about your product? How do we both benefit by this? That's what partnerships are. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about with regard to partnerships in this particular space. That being, I'm just going to say that I'm going to call it the firearms training space.
We're on After Dark.
Yeah, exactly. It's very broad, but at the same time, to give people context. And, one of the things I came up with is like, look, why are you coming to me? Like, why is this important for you? Well, I'm looking to reach people in a different way because, the routes that we've been using are becoming increasingly tougher to do because they've been, quote unquote, suppressed. So, we're just looking to reach an audience in a different way and drive people to our product. And I go, cool. But at the same time, like, where are you going to see that? Well, if I'm talking about it on Instagram and you're getting banned, right? And you're getting shadow banned, what do you think that's going to happen to me? If you're talking about it now, you want me to talk about your product, like, then you're just handing off the problem to me and to our listeners and to our viewers. So I have to be careful about that as it relates to things like YouTube. Okay, well, we could put like maybe an organic ad read or something on YouTube. It's no different there. In fact, their policies are way more strict than even Instagram is, with regard to, what you can say, what you can show, and so forth. So, like it has to make sense. How else are you reaching your people? And if you're constantly just trying to do it through that one medium, I think that's obviously, as you mentioned, you guys both mentioned, it's very limiting. And at some point, this is what I was saying about your account not being shown to anybody else. You have to see this coming. This is what the reality of it is. So if you're not working on something on the back end or other ways to get your message out there, promote your product, promote your company, promote your service or whatever else, you're going to be stuck, basically caught with your pants down at some point. Can you afford for that to happen? Because if not, then you need to be investing some time, effort, money. And to your point, this is the example I was going to use, a new skill. Like, people have no problem throwing $800 at a new pistol optic when it comes out because they think it's going to improve their skill, right? Or their capability out on the range or in the game of life, or so they don't get killed in the streets, or whatever. The point is like, what else could you be doing to drive, or from an investment perspective, to improve your skills elsewhere, so that the underlying thing of you being a shooter, you promoting a product, a service, or whatever else, can be platformed in a way where you continue to drive business your way. What's more important? But again, like I think in this kind of genre, or in this genre, you see that a lot. Like, oh, I'll just buy the next thing. Like I'll buy my way on. I'll buy a sponsorship. I will give this guy, this influencer on Instagram who has 50,000 followers or whatever. I'm going to give him some product. I'm going to prop him up. I'm going to send him some shirts, some holsters, whatever the hell it is, right? And he's gonna promote my thing, and I'll use his skill, right? And I'll leverage him in order to do it for me. And then that guy on the receiving all that stuff somehow thinks that this is a good idea for him. And the next thing you know, he's compromised not only him, but anybody else he may be partnered with, anybody else he might be taking things from, or collecting a paycheck from, including his customer base, which oftentimes might not be happy with that decision. And then if you get shut down, why am I coming to you? You're not so cool anymore. There's a lot of things that go into that. But this goes to a bigger conversation about people just being smarter about the business end of thing. And to your point, I think it's the why. Like, why am I doing this? And where are my customers? Or where is my audience? And people put all this weight into Instagram as the answer for that. As an industry, this is where this thing lives right now, much like there's a few others that do. And I think it's a dangerous prospect. You're giving them power.
Yeah, I would think of trying to shift towards a management system that incorporates Instagram, right? That incorporates TikTok, that incorporates YouTube, something like Go High Level. Like for the coaches or people that are running firearms, like instructional programs, or I would just consider stealing some insight from what the business coaches are doing, or the sales coaches who I feel like have figured out this whole coaching business model, more than any other industry currently. It's trickling down to like the creative space, which we're in, where videographer coaches are now kind of building out and launching their own coaching or training programs. It's trickling down to the fitness industry, which nutrition coaches or people that have online programs are starting to use. From what you're saying, it sounds like Instagram is a major platform, but looking into management systems like Go High Level, where you can log in and send a message to all of your Instagram followers or anybody that's liked a post that you posted on Instagram from this software, from your computer. You don't even have to be on Instagram. Take leverage away from your following on Instagram and towards a legitimate system where you have endless leads, endless conversations, is something worth considering. And it's blown my mind, like looking into it, because I did live on that world of, okay, Instagram, YouTube, this for the past 5-6 years. And I'm now transitioning into learning more about this stuff and working with people who have found more success by taking that step.
That approach.
Taking that leap. So
based on what you see in this industry, what would you say is the best way to captivate your audience? Let's say like on Instagram, if you have a firearms business or you're a training coach, I see a lot of videos floating around where it's just people either showing body cam footage or people kind of showing like a quick reload and doing something cool. And then I guess you have people who just aim to educate. So mixing all those three together or focusing on one more than the other?
It's a great question. And you came at it from the perspective of, if I was a coach, like a firearms coach, what would I do? I think you wrapped up pretty much all of it. I think this is the thing that I think a lot of coaches miss, that they think it's about the training piece. Like people will come to me for my knowledge because I can make them better at what they're doing. They're missing a lot of pieces there. Okay, you're a grandmaster USPSA shooter. That's great. I know there's some things I can learn from you. Like, and you're going to be able to probably tell me a few things or show me a few things that I didn't know, or help me improve on what my current level is. No doubt about it. But there's so many other things to coaching and building a business around coaching than just being just because you're the best at working out if you're a personal trainer, right? Or just because you're the best at shooting because you happen to be maybe a sponsored or even a professional shooter. Somebody's paying you to shoot, which is very rare. Not very many people getting paid to shoot. But they're looking at it as like you're taking like your capability or your hobby or both, happens to be a capability that I have. I'm very good at shooting. I'm knowledgeable around the subject matter and maybe a bunch of different levels. And it's somewhat of a hobby. And I'm trying to make now a living out of it. And they're doing that with fancy shooting videos is the one thing. Like that's where it started. It's evolved. Like it started with like fancy shooting videos. Who's the faster shooter? Who does the drill in this amount of time? And then it changed over a little bit. Then you saw guys giving a little bit more information around that. Here's the fast shooting video. Here's what I'm doing. Here's why. But that took a little bit of time, because then what you ended up having is people maybe seemingly shooting fast and are doing stuff, but the stuff they're saying isn't really matching up. And now they're getting called out on it, right? Like, whoa. But that doesn't really work like that. Or you really didn't give us that much information. You just kind of said some stuff, but there's not a lot of value to it. And then you had other people like, oh, I can bring more value to this. So they spend a little bit more time on their videos. There's a little bit more production involved, right? And then there's the captions got longer. So then you started seeing like, okay, here's a little bit more stuff. And it's starting to lead to more, like now, if we're looking at evolving now, it's like, well, now everybody's sort of trying to do this. Some people doing a better job than others. And so what you're kind of seeing is like this collaboration of stuff. Like people are talking to one another. Coaches are talking to one another. They're doing IG lives together. They're doing videos and comparing and contrasting one another's. They're sharing one another's stuff. Like here's Joe doing this drill. We were just talking about this the other day. So you're trying to leverage somebody else's stuff in a good way, in a positive way. But then there's the opposite of that as well. There's if you're a coach, it's seemingly in this industry, you're not a good coach unless you can call somebody else out on their shit. Like if you don't have that in you, right, and you're not doing that, then you're not paying attention, you're not relevant. And by the way, that's the shit that gets put into the feed. And we're seeing the drama, right? If you're not involved in the drama, then you're not going to get the attention and maybe not the respect, or maybe you're not accepted, or maybe you're not people don't assume you're in that circle of higher level coaches or whatever else. So I think there's a little bit of like, it started out as like entertainment, then it turned into like infotainment, then it turned into a little bit more infotainment with some education. Then it turned into a little bit more education, and that's kind of what you're seeing now. I think there's a lot of, when I say that word education, I think there's a lot of room for it to get really messy in there. Like a hot topic in this space is like the CQB thing, right? So people are looking at it going, oh, well, if I wanted more customers and I want to reach more people, then I need more education. That's the answer. So I'm going to go take a weekend course, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to start teaching that. Right? After taking it for 2 days, right? Taking CQB instruction for 2 days. And then, so now I'm teaching people that, and now somehow I have this false confidence that I can go out on the internet and start teaching people through the internet how to do it. And then that turns into that whole cycle, that shit show again of like, whoa, like, dude, you have no business talking about that because you don't know. Like, and you don't know what you don't know, and you're taking what very little information you have, and you're putting it out there. So I think that's a mistake, but the good ones know how to do that well. So they're chopping up their content, and none of the original like entertainment stuff ever went away. People just started doing a little bit less of it, and it evolved. And I think where it's evolving to now, what we're seeing, and I hope it continues to go there, is a little bit more of this information and education being centered around like data-driven type information. Now, data is important. It is. It's not everything though. And so people right now are like, there's some people that are doing a good job at this, but other people are struggling. They're trying to present data, but they also are not also well-versed at talking about the gray area around that data, and that it's very, these are individual bases. We can't apply this to every situation. So how do we take the good from this, apply it to that? This is what I think the coaching of like firearms instruction is evolved to from a social media perspective. I believe there were people doing all of that very good before. There's learning how to maybe put it out there in a way that people are enjoying listening to, watching, liking, sharing, reposting and stuff like that. I've done this a million times. People are probably bored of me saying this, but I compare it to the fitness industry and how the fitness industry evolved in providing information through channels like what we're talking about and the different ways they do that. The most successful ones out there use all the platforms, all the different ways. They are automating a lot of things in terms of messaging or figuring out who the tribes are that listen to specific information and how they take it in and talking to them specifically in these different ways. I guess in the end, like they're figuring out that like I have to be having a conversation. I can't just be filming a video. There has to be this ongoing dialogue or conversation. And I think what that really boils down to in the end, and people in this space might think it's a little corny, is you got to have a connection with people. Like there has to be, if you're going to be a coach and you're going to be and you're going to be successful long term, you have to have a connection with your audience, your student, your whoever that is. And as a student or as a participant, I want to have a connection to the coach at some level, right? Like, do I like this guy or not like that guy? That's a place to start. Like, is this guy coming from a similar background to me? Is he not? Like, is he speaking my language? Do I like his tone? Do I like the clothes he wears? Does he shoot the right guns? Does he, like, is he a Glock guy or a SIG guy? Like, that's how people make those initial decisions. But in the end, like from a purchase decision and a long-term purchase or, business relationship decision, they have to feel a connection to it. I think otherwise it's set up on a sort of a weak or unsolid foundation. And I think there's several people out there that have figured this out, and there's some that aren't. Like, and I'll give you an example. Mark from JBS Training Solutions. Mark has a connection to his students, like, and to his people. Mark has a very specific way about him, and he is totally fine if you're not into that. But he wants to have a connection to his students. Like he feels compelled to do this.
You can see this through the episode.
You can see it on the episode. You can see it in his post, in the post that he does do. And at the same time, Mark does not care if you're not into him. He wants you to like him. But if you don't, he also doesn't lose any sleep over that.
Yeah.
And he's not out there banging, or beating other people down for not liking him or saying something different. He doesn't waste any oxygen over there. He is simply trying to maintain the connection to the people that he has and build new relationships in that same kind of way. And again, there's probably a lot of people out there going, this sounds so ridiculous. Like, people just want to wear a kit and shoot fast. Well, if that's what you think, then keep doing that. But I guarantee there's other people out there being very successful. Mark's selling out every fucking class, every class, and it's a similar group of people. It's a similar community. He's building a tribe, and they feel part of something because they feel a connection to him. So I think that is the key to being a good, we can boil it down to being a firearms instructor, but yeah, I think it's much bigger than that. In the end, if you want to be successful long term, if you're like in law enforcement or you're in the military and you're an instructor, who gives a fuck if you have a connection to your students or not?
Mm-hmm.
They're here for 6 weeks and then they're fucking gone, and I get the next 6 weeks of people, or for the next 6 weeks I have a new group of people. I don't care. Like I have to get you to this level of proficiency. Like, you don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. These are the tests you need to pass. These are the standards, whatever. I have to teach you this curriculum. We move on. And I think that's where a lot of these coaches came from. So they actually haven't seen what coaching looks like. They've seen what instruction looks like. And then when they move over and like to the social media world, what they see is like they see an instructor doing things and saying things similarly to kind of what they've heard, or saw in their process of instruction whenever they got it, and they're trying to use that as a business model. I think it's a poor one. I think it's a very poor business model.
No, they don't have cameras in front of them when they're on base, and they're teaching these guys who are only there for boot camp, and then they're gone.
Or whatever, whatever that block of instruction is. However, I have had people on the show, and I've talked to people outside that have been instructors, right? Because that's what you are in the military, right? I think maybe you're in a unit. I don't know. Not there. Never been there. I have no idea. But I think for anybody that's been there, they know the difference, or they could recognize the difference. Maybe I'd explain it this way. You went to a school to learn a specific skill set or whatever it happens to be. Let's call it shooting, right? Like it's marksmanship 101. You're doing pistol or you're doing rifle. You had an instructor there. Maybe you liked him, maybe you didn't. But then when you got out of there and you moved on to wherever it was, you got into your unit, you got deployed, wherever you happen to be in the world in your particular thing, there was somebody there that put their arm around you to help you figure out the little things along the way, like to help you maybe be a little bit better at that shooting, but also other things. That's the difference between like coaching. That would be like a coach. That would be like a mentor. That would be like, somebody that you feel a connection to. Like, this person is genuinely doing this to help me out, but also maybe there's some selfishness to it. Like, I'm teaching you this shit because I'm trying to save your life and mine because we have to go out there and do this or whatever. That's an extreme example. But there's a big difference there, and they're not remembering maybe those things and those things that happened to them after they got instructed. And so they're leaving that part out, and they think they need to, be the big dick all the time or, do flashy things or get people's attention or whatever else. And I think that's a big mistake. And it's obviously right now what we know, and this probably like if you're on the Instagram platform, you keep doing that, nobody else is going to see you outside of the people that are already following, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact on social media, if you are a coach or if you have a business similar to teaching people, is hidden close to home. So Eli and I, we're jiu-jitsu guys. Our feed is a lot of jiu-jitsu videos. You see a sick-ass video, some dude throwing up a flying armbar, transitioning into omoplata, eventually ending up on the back somehow, choking guy out. It's cool, it's flashy, but then it's just something you look at, you scroll, maybe like, and you keep going. As opposed to actually retaining a lot of like information or a lot of like something you can actually relate to or apply in real life situation.
Mm-hmm.
If I see a video and it's a guy telling me, you know what, you're walking home with your lady, this guy comes out of you at you from another angle, what are you going to do, right? Then you prepare yourself and you follow the step-by-step instruction this guy provides to you. Now I'm learning something and I'm actually thinking about, okay, I got a date next weekend. We're going to eventually get home.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I think I need to know now so that I can prepare myself for the future. Then I go and I click on his page, I look at his stuff, and then now he has a potential customer.
It's part of a larger conversation. What you're putting out is part of a larger dialogue, right? And that is like, hey, I'm showing you a little bit of it here. Here's how this is relatable, right? And here's where you can find out more information. And here's how this is available. And when you get there, the next part is like, what do you get? Like, what's free and what's paid for? So like when you go to his website,
Mm-hmm.
right? You click on the link in the bio, right?
Yeah.
What do you see? Well, there's going to be a product, there's a guide, there's a video series, there's something. And people want to see a little bit more. Like, oh, I think this is kind of relatable. I like what this guy has to say. How else do I get more? Okay, when I get there, what's free and what costs money?
Right.
That is a big problem in this space in terms of what's free and what costs money. Because in a sense, the industry's done that to themselves, right? Because of, again, I don't think there's been a lot of strategy to becoming a really good coach and having a coaching business. And a lot of the information that's being put out there, well, most of the information that's being put out there, unless you go to a class, the viewers and the consumers think it should be free. Oh, you're talking about this stuff all the time, so why would I pay to come to a class to do it? And then how dare you charge $500 for 6 hours of instruction when I can just get on your IG lives and basically get the same stuff. The coaches haven't done a good job of separate. Again, there's been no strategy to why am I having this conversation right now? Where does it lead the audience to? Knowing that I can't give them all the information here, but I could give them a little bit more here. And then ultimately, if they want more, there has to be something that they pay for, because that's how I'm going to make a living. So there's been very little of that strategy of what you just said.
Balance of being a good coach and having kind of that selfish, that need to actually sell something.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're trying to make a living out of this, you have to be smart about it, and it can't just be randomly throwing stuff out there, thinking that that's going to give you, it's gonna mean revenue in the end. There has to be like a pathway to get people there, and I think it's like some of them have gotten somewhere down the path, and they just don't know about the rest of it. Some people have done a really good job with their social media, and some people, all they do is teach classes, but they're that well known and they're that popular and they've established themselves, long enough to where that just works for them. And other people are looking at the newcomers, looking at it, they go, oh, well, if he did it, then I can do it. But they're missing they've been doing this for 10, it took them 10 years to get here.
Yeah.
What do you think kind of the collective stage of what people's messaging is in the industry on social media is? Like, is it talking to the average citizen? Is it talking to the consumer that's been in the industry for 3 years but isn't, military or doesn't have a lot of experience and can still learn from a lot of people? Like, because I feel like the parallel that I have the most experience with being the fitness industry is the industries continue to grow because the collective voice has shifted more and more towards the general population. And an example of that would be instead of saying amino acids break down into blah, 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 and using all these words that people don't even know, what this type of firearm is, or even maybe what a reload is, right?
Yeah.
But it's shifted towards these 5 foods will help you lose fat. Everybody knows what that is, even if they don't know about nutrition or what macronutrients means. And so the collective voice of fitness has shifted towards, the average population, where from what I see, not only the voice, but also the offers. The offers, what are the course names? Some examples of them don't even make sense to somebody that doesn't know what it is. It's speaking to an advanced demographic. And so the mistake that I've seen in hundreds of trainers and coaches that I've worked with is they are speaking and using terminology that only other coaches are going to understand. And so what it becomes is a battle of, well, I've been a personal trainer for 10 years.
Every time.
And I've been a personal trainer for 12 years and you don't know what you're talking about, but I'm NASM certified and I worked with this institute.
Every time.
So that's my experience from the trainer industry, and it happens in all different industries. You could probably speak to it better with respect to the firearms industry, but like, where do you think the collective voice is at? And is that matched with the desired outcome of growing your business to be more relatable to the average civilian, right? To get more of that demographic on board with everything that's being discussed and talked about?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of things to this. First off, I think you have to, the question would be what is the goal? Like, what is your goal in the messaging that you're putting out there? Is it to be popular and famous? Because that's a much different strategy than building a business, right? We're not talking about the same thing. Like, if you think it's the same thing, you're wrong. Like, building a business and becoming famous are 2 different things. So you have to, what is your goal? Like, who are you trying to reach? But you're also making a very good point about, you see it as it turns into a very advanced level conversation or message for what ends up being a very small part of the population. Now, there's a couple things going on with that population. I think one, there are a lot of people that are trying to fit themselves into the more advanced population when group when they're not, right? So if you have your top 10% and then there's 20% below that leaves you 70% left over. I think most people think they're in the top 20% or they're in that 20%. And there are people in that 20% that believe they're in the 10% that just aren't, and vice versa. As people think they're at 10%, they're only in the 20%. But my point is there's a struggle back and forth with where do I fit in? And a lot of the conversations get very circular. We have the same it seems to be a lot of the very same conversations happening over and over again. And no, the answer is we're not talking to the general, the general user out there.
Right.
And I can tell you the reason why. It's the same reason. There's 2 reasons. One, very much like fitness. But it goes back to what you're saying. They don't understand. They don't have a business. They don't have a business model that makes sense. So they don't understand how talking to that person helps them, right? Now, that might not be fair. I think the model might be I only want the people in that 20%. Okay, well, that just limited your effective reach and your effective revenue, because I believe, talking about percentages, there is a very small percentage of that entire group, that entire 100%, that actually purchase training. They're actually going to go to classes. And now you are basically sharing. I had this discussion with Mike Olivella from Precor. Everybody's sharing that very small percentage. So of that 100%, the 10, the 20, and the 70, all added together, there may be 15% of the users that are actually purchasing training, right? So now we're all competing for the same people, and they're just kind of shifting around on the map and going to who they want to go to. And somewhere along the line, there's this division that's starting to be created. Well, don't go to that guy because he sucks.
Interesting.
Right. So that now not only have you've reduced, or you're working with a reduced market segment that you're actually can market to. Now you're trying to divide it up this pie into all these smaller pieces, right? And what do? I teach CQB. So of that 15% of the whole group, right? What percentage of those people actually want to know CQB, right? That's going to be a smaller group, right? And now you've got 100 people out there that are talking CQB, and that's very small group has to make that choice. So I think you see where I'm kind of going with that is that there's a smaller, like if the actual percentage of people that you're trying to get to spend money with you is that large, and I could be way off with the 15%, but I don't think we're too far off there. I think it's a pretty small percentage of people that actually will pay for training. And you're trying to make your living off of that with all the fish in the sea with regard to instructors, training companies, all that. I think your days are limited. You're on the clock.
Yeah.
You are definitely on the clock. You need to be remarkable at a lot of things. So going back to diversifying yourself, reaching all the different people in that 15% in different ways is very important, because people hear things, they take information in different ways. Like you mentioned, not all of them are going to be on Instagram, right? Some of them might be somewhere else. So you've got to figure out a way to talk to them.
Yeah. And it's like important just to understand basic general stages of marketing awareness too. Like unaware, aware, problem aware, then product or service aware, brand aware. And if you're just speaking to people who are product or service aware, you're losing, the people that are problem aware. They're like thinking about, man, I wish I could learn how to, defend myself in my home. It's a weird layout. Like I have a firearm, but they might not even know what the word CQB means.
Yeah.
And so it's going a stage back and then being like, all right, what kinds of videos or what kind of content can I do to take people in stage 3 and move them to stage 4? And, you might not want to go all the way to unaware. Like, did you know that you might, but it's still understanding that, knowing who you're talking to, how to most effectively talk to them, and then bring them.
I think there's a way to do that, man, in terms of going back to the unaware. I'm going to come back to that in a second. I think there's actually a really good way. I'm actually using that strategy right now. I'll give you an example. But going back to the unaware, aware, and then you also have to break it down into, like, so if you're unaware, you haven't currently adopted whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. And we'll use the CQB as an example. Like, you're not adopting any kind of training to from a CQB perspective. Then there's the people, as something new kind of comes out or people becoming aware of stuff, then there's early adopters. Oh, I'm jumping right into that, right? Like, it's like with technology, there's all, this is the game, right? It's like, get the people in with their early adoption process and get them going, because then they're going to be well ahead of the game, and also part of the product development piece as the adopters start to kind of come in and start to, oh, this is cool. I'm watching all these early adopters do this stuff and they're doing cool shit. And I want some of that. And I want to try that. And I'm going to experiment. And I'm going to have that. And then as that's happening, there's people on the fringes, and it's a smaller percentage of people, but it's also the largest percentage of the market segment, which are the late adopters. Millions of people out there that haven't even maybe even heard of this yet. They're just seeing people having a good time and it's cool, or it's whatever. Hasn't really fit in. And at some point, it's almost like, well, if you don't know this, then you're just way behind the times. I mean, think about your parents and my parents and cell phones, or my parents and computers or whatever. Like, it's having a conversation with my mom about her MacBook it takes a lot of patience. I was like, wait, I have to take it all the way back to, like, she really doesn't know how to do this.
Set her up a channel.
Yeah. So
good luck.
So going back, so in terms of the strategy, like, how would you talk to, particularly, and I'm using the strategy in fitness right now, and with Steven in our Feel You program, our group Feel You program. But before I give you that, tell you exactly what I'm saying, it's in this genre, like, there's a lot of fucking ego, and people are like, oh, you can't have any. You're gonna have it, and you're gonna run into it. You need to know how to manage your own, as well as be aware of how to manage others. That said, like, going all the way back and saying, so this is what CQB is, and we're using that as an example. It's a horrible example. I don't know. This one's the one that always gets brought up, and now I'm contributing to it. So I apologize to the audience. It just came up. But you go all the way back and go, this is what CQB is. This is where it would be used. This is, why it's maybe important or not important to know. This is how it might apply to you, and go super basic. At this point, you have to talk to, I think, the middle group and pull in the people that are at that bottom end that really don't know, but they're afraid to say that they don't know. because they watch and they're seeing what's happening in the space with people that say something about it when all these other people seemingly know more. They just attack that person. It's a fucking feeding frenzy. So I don't want to be that guy. Yeah. I don't want to be attacked. I don't want to look stupid. It's like going into the gym for the first time. Like I need to learn how to work out first before I go get a personal trainer, because I don't want to look stupid and I don't want to be attacked and I don't want to be made fun of. It's the fucking dumbest premise ever. But at the same time, I get it. Like there's an emotional response to that. But going back to say, hey, this is how you might approach the CQB thing. Again, I'll just parallel over. Like, so we're approaching this with like on the nutrition side of things, like not trying to tell people, hey, this is what nutrition coaching looks like. These are the things you need to be aware of, because by and large, at this point, everybody's already heard it at least 10 times, right? They've already heard about it at least 10 times.
You mean the general public?
The general public
is aware now.
They're aware, they've heard it, but they're still struggling. They're still confused. Some of them have a little bit more, like a higher level of awareness, but maybe they lack self-confidence, or maybe they're still confused. There's this whole conversation going on in their head. How do you get that conversation started without insulting anybody in that bigger group for them to go, oh, look at this bozo. He's fucking trying to give the definite, yeah, come on. Everybody knows this already and they're getting attacked publicly, right? It's like, maybe you approach it like this, and this is what I'll see how it works. I don't know. People are going to start seeing some video and stuff coming out, but it's like, hey, chances are you probably already know a lot about your nutrition. You know it's important. You know there's basic things that you need to be practicing. The challenge is that you're not doing it, or you're missing some pieces, right? Or that you might need to completely wrap your arms back around this because you know how to do it one way and it's not working anymore. Or you just need to clean it up a little bit because you were doing something or you've tried something and you want to take it to the next level. You're effectively saying to the person that's at the bottom of that learning curve, going, oh, yeah, I kind of know some things, and I can get into this entry point without feeling stupid, because they're acknowledging that, yes, I know some things. And the coach that's been doing this forever should also be looking at that going, that's kind of smart, you know? And I think that is like, I'm not insulting anybody. I'm not taking it all the way back to basics, but I am saying that the basics are important, and that a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what those basics in the firearm space, it's fundamentals, right? That's the term we use. They understand the fundamentals that are important, but there's a big disconnect between within the application of those fundamentals. So you can go back and you can say, like, hey, here's what this is, and this is where it's important, or this is what isn't. And we talk about fundamentals all the time, and you've probably heard that a million times, but here's why it's important in this case, and this is what we should be focusing on here. Here's where to go to get some more information on that. Not try to teach them in the Instagram post, or, you know, maybe you're directing them to some other platform, you know, or whatever else it is. But my point is like, there's this nurturing process of talking to the entire group, right? And doing it in a way where you said, like with the fitness industry, it's like it's coaches talking to other coaches, and where that gets really messy. I think whenever you're having a conversation where you're directly trying to talk to other coaches, you should also be mindful that all those other people are listening.
Right.
To that conversation. I mean, that's the whole point of social media, to be having a public conversation. And the same as when you're talking to those people that are like beginners, newbies, novices. When you're talking to them, I believe you should be doing it in a way, or thinking about it in a mindset that other coaches will see you doing that and respect, like, I get what he's doing there. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to love it, right? And you're immune to, you know, some troll coming over the top and telling you what a dumbass you are or whatever else. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you look at that like that, and you look at it that way, like when somebody walks into your conversation, no matter where they are in the spectrum that you explained, they're looking at it going, I see where I can get some value from this, right? Or I see where he's trying to provide value in this. Maybe I don't get value because I know this stuff, or this is old news to me, but I see how and why he's trying to provide that value, and that I respect. I think firearms coaching space could use a lot more of that right now. And it's just not, too busy eating their own, or trying to be all things all the time, rather than having these conversations to pull in all the people into a conversation and finding out where that conversation should go. Like, they're making a lot of assumptions, maybe based on what they're seeing other people doing on social media, and they're trying to have that conversation, or trying to do a flashier video, or a more sensational caption, or a more controversial statement, And I think it's a mistake. I think it should be, hey, when I test when we put these videos out, we're testing. Like just like YouTube is or TikTok is, we're testing like, what do people want to hear? Okay, well, right now they're telling us they want to hear a little bit more of that. So we're going to talk about this and we're going to put it out in these ways. And each one of those is a test, right? And then continue the dialogue or the conversation that way. But you were asking me like, what are the missing pieces? I think that's a major missing piece. And I think it's a misunderstanding of the larger population, because what you were saying, Eli, is that we're not having this conversation with the larger population. The larger population is the person that is nowhere, they've adopted.
Yeah, the unaware, aware, or,
somewhere
maybe problem aware. Like, man, I got a gun pulled on me in an ugly fight. I was not ready for it at all. I'm glad it went okay. I know I need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm problem aware now.
My neighbor's house just got broken into.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were held at gunpoint.
Yep.
And, terrible things happen, terrible things, from a trauma perspective or whatever else. I don't want to be that person. I've never been into guns before, or maybe I have one and I have no idea where to start with this, but now I know this is a potential problem solver for me, maybe, but I don't know. How are we talking to that person?
Yeah. And understanding, is that the actual customer of your business?
100%.
Is that the customer? Is it one step below, somebody that's aware, like, yeah, I know I need to, do training eventually, but nothing ever bad has happened. So, yada, yada. Is it that the customer, or is it's probably, a lot of people are product or service aware. That's where I see the conversations in the community, at least that I've been exposed to, the small aspect of it. Those are the dialogues that I see happening. And then it's just a matter of, you're going to tap out that resource eventually, or there's going to be new people moving in thanks to the podcast, the conversations, the different forms of other people putting out content, speaking to those, audiences like yourself. Like, you do an amazing job of that. You did that for me, like going from unaware to aware to product or service aware. And now I'm solution aware. I just need the time to go train.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective from the outside looking in. Obviously, like, we talk about gun guys versus non-gun guys and things like that. I mean, you guys are coming at it from a completely outside perspective. Coming. I didn't partner up with you guys because you were gun guys. And I think that's a larger part of the conversation. Is there are way too many, and I'll put it out there as this: there are way too many bro conversations and not enough pro conversations in the space. And I think that comes down to like, hey, let's work together on this thing. Okay, what exactly does that mean? Let's collaborate. Right? What's the purpose? What's the intention? What's the overarching goal? What are our strategies? What are our tactics for doing that? And ultimately, how does this play into our business? Right? There's a lot less of that developed conversation happening, and it also stretches across like people taking products from other people and being an affiliate or being a sponsor for them or whatever else. Like, there are no right and left parameters on any of this stuff. There's nothing that's organized. It turns into like this handshake deal, where things are said, things are implied, things are assumed. Allegedly this happened. People wind up on the other end not getting what they want or they need, whatever that was, because it wasn't ever clearly defined. And what ends up happening is like a shit talking session about that person on somebody else's podcast or on their Instagram feed or whatever else. I think it's happening between big companies and consumers / influencers. I think it's happening company to company, particularly like people that are coming up with like one-off products. I mean, I've seen some shit happen in the light industry, like the weapon mounted light industry. It was like, wow, this got wild really fast. Like, maybe some things could have got cleared up here early on. We could have avoided a lot of this stuff. And what ends up happening is they have to backpedal, but not till after the damage has been done. That as an example. And again, taking products from somebody and then them expecting you to do certain things for them that weren't clearly outlined, and then you're going, wait, hold on, like I should be getting paid for this too. And like, no, that's not what we talked about. You get this, and again, bro versus pro conversations. I think a lot of people lack. They're maybe it's because a lot of this is a side gig for people. They have another job, right? And so, but they take this really seriously, just not seriously enough to make it a true like a legit business. It's just like right on the fringes of, oh, I got my LLC. I got my NRA, post cert or whatever. I got my insurance. That's like a fucking trainer that walks into the door. I got my weekend certification. Yeah. I'm good at working out. I'm good at nutrition, whatever the fuck that means. And I don't really want to work. I don't want to really do all the things to be a full-time trainer. I want you to bring people to me. I expect the Instagram platform to be just an open source platform to build my business from, and then be fucking surprised when it doesn't work out like that for them. I think that's just like, we're not handling this from a mature business sense. Now, that's not to say everybody's doing that. There are a lot of dudes out there, a lot of people, a lot of business out there done an extraordinarily good job with this. But I think there's way more people that are just playing business. And then as a result, having these like conversations that they think is a business deal, and they're like some fucking, entrepreneur that's going to turn the world on fire because they're getting a bunch of likes and follows and somebody's sending them some product. And the next thing you know, what you've done is made yourself look bad, the product look bad. And then you're getting people like, they're questioning your integrity, or they're questioning your ability, and it turns into something else. And then the worst thing happens is that they do something else to get some attention.
Yeah.
They make a post, they say some shit, they take money from somebody, they take a product from somebody, and then you're never going to live that down. There's not enough toothpaste in the world to wash that taste out of your mouth once that's happened.
It's like they self-destruct.
They self-destruct. And then it's this constant, like, I've seen people try to hold on to it, like, and they're just going down. They're going down in flames, and they're trying to take other people down with them. And it just, to me, that's just so off-putting. It's like, dude, you made your fucking bed, now sleep in it. It would be a lot easier if you just pull out of this little nosedive that you're in, admit what you did was probably not a good idea, say the reasons why, and hit the reset button.
Yeah. The longer you wait to take accountability for the reason you are where you are, and
the worse it gets.
I mean, it's just constantly trying to bring yourself back, get better. Like, I've been doing my own thing, on an entrepreneurial path this will be my 7th year in business. And it's just a constant, it's constantly trying to take more ownership of why you're not where you want to be yet. And that's one of the greatest things that I've been able to do, I think, is just like always ask, okay, this happened, this is bad. Why? Because I'm probably addicted to chaos. Like, I always try to do this or do that. Like, it's all my fault. And then, the longer I don't tell myself that when I'm facing a problem, the further and closer I get towards
the tailspin.
Yeah. Like, watch it. So
you get really good at pivoting.
Yeah.
Building that armor.
Yeah.
Being okay with it. Like, it's okay to pivot.
Yeah.
And you might need to.
But also, I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, going back to armor, like, pivoting is good. You need to do that. Like, especially when you recognize, I'm not on the right path right now, or this is going the wrong way. But I think also people want to do that before they've really put in the work to understanding if the idea, they haven't really executed very well, communicated very well. Again, going back to like the bro versus the pro conversation, like, there were so many things you could have done differently there. Can I clean those up before I completely change direction? Because again, when you completely changing direction is not bad, especially if you're being transparent about it. Like, people, when you say, hey, I was doing this, I changed my mind about this because, and here's what we're doing now. This is how it benefits you as my consumer or as my audience or whatever. This is what I believe, right? This is what I think is going to happen. This is what we're working really hard to do. And we're going to give it our best shot. And we're fallible. Like, things are going to happen along the way or whatever. But then as you're making that pivot, but I think people pivot because they're just like, they're in the chaos. They don't know which way to go sometimes, and they're just grasping at straws. And that's what I was referring to with like saying things that don't need to be said, or posting, inflammatory posts, or thirsty posts, if you will, or latching onto a company, or thinking that me being involved with this other person, this other company, this other product somehow changes that situation for me. It is the fucking same. I've used this example like with on the fitness side, like the husband that just has not taken his health or fitness seriously for a very fucking long time, right? And he's finally set, like, he's gone into a little bit of a tailspin, drinks a little too much, a little bit lazier, isn't as active with the kids, has stopped doing things, right? And, has gone to the doctor and his health's at risk, right? It got It got that bad. Right now you're in this tailspin. And then he comes out the other side where the wife's going like, man, I'm really scared for you. Honey, like this is scared. We got to get you working out. We got to change your diet. And his answer is, yeah, I'm going down to the bike shop right now. I'm going to spend 15 fucking grand on a new e-bike. That's the answer. Like, I'm going to go buy this thing. I'm going to make that kind of a decision because that seems like the right thing. Again, like they look out into Instagram. What is this guy doing? How did he become successful? He rides this bike. I need to have that bike. That'll get me where I want to go. There's zero rationale to any of that whatsoever. You don't have a fucking plan. You don't have a model. What is the pathway for you to get from, A to Z, and what are you doing along the path? And all the decisions that you make are rooted in that, are rooted in not in, oh, what's the piece of equipment? What is the relationship I have to have? What is the thing I need to be saying? What is the shirt I need to wear, the gear I need to wear, whatever else? No, it goes much deeper than that. Again, it's like bros versus pros. You were asking me, just a minute ago about like we were just talking about like the unaware, the aware, that whole segment of people. I'm curious with you guys, like, who do you think the people are in the industry based on what you're seeing and having to be exposed to through the podcast and through the media, the social media and whatnot? How do you think the segments break out within those segments? Like, where was your background before you became more aware? Like, where did it start? Where did your unawareness start?
Yeah, my awareness came from my two older brothers. They're both served in Iraq. They had 2 tours each, and they've always had guns at home. And it was a lot having to do with them trying to raise me as well because they're way older than me, and my mom was single. And I got the military treatment at home, and a lot of that was rough, but a lot of that was also, I need to teach you how to shoot. I need to teach you how to defend yourself. I need to teach you how to be disciplined. So they had a lot of influence on me with that. And every time I look at something online, I look at it from an approach where it's like, okay, that's cool. That looks really, that gear looks awesome, but I don't know how to use any of that stuff. But what I do want is I want to be able to just know the fundamentals and figure out how to pick this thing up, how to load it, how to shoot accurately, and how to practice good form in doing it. To me, I think that goes a long way because, God forbid, one day I'm older, there's a home invasion, and I need to do something. So that's me personally. And I think that like the segment in this market speaks to that for me. I see these people, and I would hope that a lot of them have a little bit of a perspective as to I need to learn this stuff because there's value in it, and this can potentially protect me someday and my family.
I know you said a lot of the stuff that's in your feed is BJJ stuff, but if on the firearm side of stuff, like whether it be coaching, gear, equipment, whatever, what percentage of that content do you feel speaks to you in the way that you just said you want or need to be spoken to?
5%.
Yeah. I figured you would say that.
Yeah, like very low. Yeah,
this just goes back to like, and you're a consumer. Like you want to be prepared. You want to be trained. You want to have, firearms. You don't need to have 15 of them, right? But you want to know that the one you have, you're proficient with, you're effective with, you're safe with, and you feel comfortable around, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's talking to you.
Nobody.
5% maybe. And maybe that's not necessarily because they're specifically talking or trying to get your attention. That just might have gotten lucky that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's fair to say. Like, okay, that just happened to resonate with you. That doesn't necessarily mean it was meant for your group of people. I also want to address the thing with your brothers, because I think that's one of these segments. Like, if I was just throwing it out there, it's like all the people that have been through like the military or law enforcement, like in their exposure, and then how they expose their family members then and or now to firearms, which is way different. I mean, those are 2 very different segments. So, but that segment is very, very, very big. And like if your brothers are seeing the stuff that you're seeing, they might be going, oh yeah, shit, this is rad. Like you said, like, oh, look at this new piece of gun, look at that new gun, look at that setup, whatever else, where they totally get it, where you're just like, I don't really get it. Is that cool?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's cool or not. It kind of looks cool. Like, I like nice things. That looks nice.
I would like to know how to shoot it accurately before even trying to put on all these attachments and modifications.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we were talking about the segments earlier a little bit, and I come from that segment of growing up without any exposure to firearms. I was thinking last night actually, because my parents were anti-gun, have some land, have a garden, farm, goats, that sort of thing.
Your parents are awesome.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They are.
They're the coolest people ever, and I respect, they're extremely smart as well. And I respect all their opinions, and, that's the way I grew up in the world. But when I was like 8 or 9, I was like, I need a BB gun. Like, nope, shut down.
Yeah,
but I was always into, weapons.
I need a BB gun.
Yeah, I was like, just target practice, and all
Eli's
that
really proficient with the nunchucks.
They gave me no shit. No, I'm kidding. I got a BB gun eventually, but I had no exposure to that whatsoever. So I found martial arts. And so even when we first started training, like you came down and were talking to me about like, well, what's the real application? Like, is the jujitsu, that you practice, is there some real application? Like, is there weapon defense? And I didn't really understand what you were talking about because I didn't have exposure to groups and communities of people that are actually training, fire, like Rogue Methods, for example, like firearms and jujitsu and wrestling, practical applicational self-defense.
Yeah,
with the weapon.
Pieces, yeah.
I didn't know any of that stuff. So I'm like, jujitsu was my answer. Like, jujitsu, you know how to fight, MMA, like you're good. That's kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of self-defense. But I got exposed to it through, the work that I do, through the podcast and through putting out a lot of this content and through giving you a thumbs up when you're like, hey, Eli, I want to go to Vegas and, shoot a bunch of...
Which I need to go do, by the way.
Content,
I need to come along on those.
Yeah, that was my first exposure was, having people shooting, what's the...
Sim rounds.
Yeah, sim rounds, at me through...
towards you.
Yeah, towards me, through doors, luckily not at me. I trusted everybody and, there was a big trust factor with just that trip in general, because the people are awesome.
Right.
And that's been my exposure. And then through that, different events through California, endless conversations with some of the most well-respected, people. So very privileged in terms of what I've seen, and the quality of people that I've been exposed to, but zero, experience or exposure beforehand whatsoever. And then in terms of the content, a lot of it is still, over my head. So, there's a lot of people that I follow now because we've either interviewed them or done episodes, but I don't understand what the heck they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just terminology. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not even a lot of like the concepts or the ways things are taught or the ideas behind videos, but the terminology is almost in a way designed to impress other people in the industry, as opposed to introduce and make it relatable and approachable to people that are outside of the industry. And it's the same thing in personal training. And that's what I work with trainers on. You want your video to hit 1 million views on YouTube as a personal trainer? Don't talk to me about your gluteus maximus. Just say your butt.
Right.
That's
crazy. Like, that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So...
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, and with regard to the discourse that's being used, like the language, right? There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of jargon that's associated with firearms, the equipment, things like that. I mean, it's just there's so much of it. It's rooted in mostly military application. A lot of the times, so. That's part of it, I think. And so if you're not from that world, I struggle with it. Like I read posts sometimes, like I was just reading one yesterday. Actually this morning, my guy Redbeard Tactical, who's out there in the world doing things. there was so many acronyms in this post. I was like, dude, I don't even know what like he tagged me in it. And I was like, because we sort of go back and forth sometimes. I was like, man, I don't even know what half this shit is. So I'm Googling acronyms. Like that's me. Like, I don't know what these are, to try to understand the post better. Look, if I have to do, like I'm doing that much work because I feel compelled to, because I want to know, like I want to be able to have these conversations with people at that level. But if I'm just coming across that, like that's going straight by me. Now, again, I think he understands his audience. He knows who he's going after, and it's not me. And I'm not saying he should just completely scrap what he's doing and go back and quote unquote dumb it down. Not saying that at all. I'm not saying he should change anything about that. But I'm saying if you're somebody coming in, right, to the coaching space, and you understand who and you look at these segments and you're looking at it going, like he's talking to a very, very specific population. Now, there could be a lot of people outside that population who are trying to be involved in that conversation and want to know what's going on, but there's a much larger part of that of the population that won't have any clue what that is and probably isn't interested in it. So take what you can from that particular thing and apply it differently as you're going forward, trying to build your dialogue with your audience, whatever that is, which should be completely based on what your goal is in terms of, what is this? Am I just trying to be famous? Am I trying to have a business? Am I trying to build my YouTube channel? Am I trying to build my Instagram? Am I trying to sell a product? It all should come back to that. And again, not that there's a one size fits all to any of that, but it should always be thinking like, am I sending the right message here? Will my audience get this? And they'll let you know if they do or not, if you're paying attention.
Dude, there's a level of respect and there's a level of importance in all of the terminology.
Yeah, all of it.
It's like jujitsu, for example. Like you're not going to change the name of a kimura or a omoplata because your average citizen is not going to know what it means. You know, and then if you do explain a breakdown, a jujitsu video, and you post it, you're like, all right, so instead of saying omoplata, you're like, all right, I got the shoulder in this kind of trapped position here, and I'm going to put my hips up. Some black belt's going to roast you and be like, you don't even know the name of that position. Yes. But what he doesn't understand is you're trying to talk to people that, you know, so there's like this weird kind of dynamic or balance, but it's important to understand that, because what happens is the people that do that, like the self-defense guy that shows people how to disarm.
Are we talking about Dusty?
No, I don't know his name. I'm not talking about his name.
Detroit dude, whatever.
You need to understand why that guy's crushing you in terms of views.
Fucking crushing you, yeah.
And that's the reason why, is because he's not bringing any of that stuff into the picture. He's talking to an unaware audience, and the unaware audience is a lot bigger than the problem or product service aware audience.
You know, I think actually it's much easier to talk to the much more aware audience and use that terminology and be way more specific, because they get it, you know they get it, and you may be getting validation from the fact that they do get it and they understand or agree with whatever it is that you're saying or whatever point you're trying to bring to the table. And I get it. I love that too. Like I can have a higher level conversation. I just had one the other day with In Extremis Performance. I was talking to Jake out there, and it was such a refreshing conversation. I'm going to connect with him in a couple of weeks here. He's going to be out on the West Coast. Point of this is he's in the human performance community, and I don't have a lot of human performance conversations on the podcast. I have, and I'm reaching out. That's why I was talking to Jake to do that. And it particularly applies to this space because he's a subject matter expert in human performance around, I hesitate to use this term, and he would say that too. We'd both chuckle if I said it, but like the tactical athlete, if you will. But my point of that is God, it was fun. Like we were able to have we were able to chuckle about sort of the dumbing down that we've seen and the completely off base stuff, but we were also able to talk about it at a much higher level. And that was fun for me, but there was a platform for this. There was a time and a place for this. And, you know, when he puts his stuff out, he does it in a very specific way. He'll talk to whoever's in front of him in the way that they need to be talked to. And I think that's the challenge with the social media piece and people getting on and not knowing how or who their audience is in that particular space, or just trying to talk to everybody, you know, in that space, or again, that very small percentage of people that actually knows what's going on or cares about that particular thing. But the language, you were talking about the language being used. I know it's tough because you don't want to sound like an idiot, you know, but I think if you do a good job of balancing that out, and this is the outstanding part about these social media platforms is every one of them gives you a way to do it long form and short form. You can have a website where you can go as long as you want, man. Write the longest blog of your life. Post the longest video on YouTube and post it on your page. Whatever else. Like Instagram limits you a little bit. So you have to be really good at that short form conversation. Twitter reduces you even more. So if you're not good with the short form stuff, I know I got a little bit longer. Like they allowed it to open up a little bit. I don't even play in Twitter, so I don't even know. Like
X. Now called X.
X. Whatever. I don't know. Like I have seen that a little bit, but I don't play on there, so I don't even know. So, but you have to be really good. I know I am not good there, and I'm not willing to do another platform yet, not right now. But you have to know how to talk to each audience. And I know people are going, yeah, man, this is social media 101. Yeah, but this industry is not doing a very good job with it from a coaching perspective and I think people are really struggling. And again, my point of this is like people are getting like upset and pissed off and disgruntled and frustrated about being quote unquote canceled, by the social media platforms. You're going to have to learn how to do this stuff differently or better. Again, learn a different skill in order to continue this conversation. Otherwise, if you put all your eggs in this basket, you're going to find out real fast how fast they'll spoil. People are finding that out right now and they're getting frustrated. And I've had conversations with people where they're just like, man, I just don't know if it's worth it anymore. Like I don't know what to do. Like there's a lot put into this particular platform and you have to diversify. So, and how you do that obviously is it could be delicate depending on what you're selling, what it is you're trying to do. Again, obviously like YouTube as an example is not, if you sell guns, that's what you do. You sell firearms. YouTube's not going to be real friendly with you. You're going to have to find a different way to have the conversation without getting canceled. How do you do that? Like we were talking about an example earlier today, like how does JP Sears continue to do what he's doing and not get canceled, right? Like
terminology.
It's the terminology. Yeah. He's making fun of the other side. Like there's pure satire. He's basically having the conversation that the other side's having, but he's having it in a completely ridiculous kind of way.
Yeah. If you transcribe his videos and take a look at the transcript, you would think it's written by WHO.
Yeah, 100%. On it 100% of the time. Now, I get that that's, like creating a troll page or a troll video is not what we want to be doing in this industry. Like people are like, no, I'm not about that. I'm not a comedian, man. I'm not handling it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying have the conversation in a different way. And think about this too. So we've talked about the people that may be adopters or may be interested in this subject matter as a means to, they're aware now and they want to protect themselves or they want to know a little bit more, like you were saying about, hey, I just want to make sure I'm safe and proficient and I know how to use this if the time ever came up. You're now more aware, maybe not a firearms owner, but I understand this stuff. And if I was going to go that route, there are some resources I know where I could go to get some instruction, learn from some people, all of those things. That's kind of where you're at. Think about all those people out there that think I'm a fucking pariah for even talking about this stuff and advocating for Second Amendment rights and bringing people on the show to spread their message about the evilness of everything that the firearms and the Second Amendment represents. That is a way larger population. And whatever conversation you're having, whether you hate them or not, they're listening or they're getting exposed to it. I get exposed to it all the time. You head through some of my stuff, like, on my, just stuff, particularly like on Instagram, but YouTube's the best, man. That's where you get all the haters, that come out. And these aren't people within the industry trying to eat their own. These are just people that just straight up hate cops. They hate, they hate the military. They hate the government. They hate firearms. They hate everything. They just hate. And you're just giving them more fuel for the fire versus, again, maybe having a little bit of a different conversation. I don't know what people, kind of responsibility people have to that. But I've always taken that as a responsibility. I'm going to have my convictions, but I'm also not trying to do it and be an asshole at the same time. Whether you think I am or not, I really am trying to be somewhat diplomatic here so that I can show both sides or at least bring a logical conversation to the table. I recognize you can't do that in every post. That's not what I'm saying. But I do believe there should be some responsibility in that because we have way more, because it gets the traffic, the controversial post, the fuck I'm not giving up my rights, like you're an idiot, like just the disparaging remarks, whatever else, like, well, they're saying the same thing about you. So think about that.
Yeah, the responsibility piece is big. Like you can look at that from the MMA jiu-jitsu in my mind, because that has gone mainstream, right? So it takes a lot of guts to walk into an MMA gym for the very first time. You're going out of your way to go learn something. You're probably going to get your ass kicked, and you're going
to be horrible at it.
Yeah, you're going to be bad at it, right? But with social media and with the UFC being able to talk to an unaware audience, mostly through the marketing of shit talk, because everybody shit talks. And so if they see Conor McGregor say something really nasty to, Poirier, then that goes viral. And then that brings people and makes them tune into the sport. And then they look at, okay, what's the discipline? Oh, there's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. What's jiu-jitsu? But then there are all these techniques surfacing and things surfacing and giving people who might not have the level of responsibility to go into a gym or to learn those things now have access to a rear naked choke. Mm-hmm. So they do it on their friend when they're drunk and he passes out, So like, is it safe? Is it the right idea to bring firearms and applicational knowledge of all this stuff to the general public? Or is there kind of a wall that needs to be built where people get introduced, they come, they train, they learn, and go from there, right? I don't know the answer to that. But we're talking about all this stuff about, okay, how to get it out there into the world the right way. I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to do. I'm not sure. Because there's such a high level of responsibility in having a firearm, knowing how to use one. And you talk about this, religiously on the importance of it, which is definitely like the right perspective or the right way to put it out there. But dude, there's some people in the world that just...
Oh yeah, man. They're just not going to be responsible.
Yeah, whatever you do. So...
Yeah, and so we have that to contend with, whether we like it or not. And discounting them or pretending that they're just idiots and you shouldn't listen to them, that's not an answer, because there are a lot of them out there and they're saying a lot of stuff at the highest levels of government. Mm-hmm. And people are listening to them. A lot of people are listening to them. And I think some of it is like leveraging it. And I've been guilty of it too. Like I've posted a video or two where you hear one of these people saying things that is just so ridiculous. And I've made my little comments and later I've thought about it. And for me, if I'm putting that stuff out now, it's less about me being angry about it and me just kind of chuckling about it and maybe it's a little satire, I just put it there. People can listen to it, and I
love them.
I'll make a comment, but it's the comment being made. I think I'd like to think is more about like, are we really listening to what's happening here? Like, what is really being said here? So, whatever side of the aisle you might be on this particular topic, like, I'm not saying this person is an idiot. I'm trying not to. They're doing a good job of making themselves look like that, right? In my mind. I'm just trying to, for the person that maybe doesn't realize that, I'm trying to put a question in their mind to maybe think about this, like, what am I missing here? Again, this goes back to me, like when I get the memes or whatever, or the people just beating the shit out of somebody or myself or whatever else. I'm just going, damn, like, what am I missing? Like, why is this person so angry about this? Why are they so disconnected from this? Why is my viewpoint so different? And again, taking responsibility to having that conversation, leveraging an opportunity, I guess is the point I would make. Again, not everybody has to do this. I just think like if you're trying to build a business or trying to make an impact, a positive impact on somebody, on individuals, or at least just have these more intelligent, more productive types of conversations, you could be leveraging those things a little bit differently. And that includes like the instructor that says something that is like, oh boy, like the firearms instructor or whatever, the video comes out, it's like, oh boy, like this one's like, I go, I'm not commenting, I'm not liking, I'm not doing, I'm just going, this one's, they, just like you would say about the other side, right? The other side of the aisle or whatever affiliation you might have, they are going to have a field day with this. And then lo and behold, within 24 hours, it's being shared, it's being commented, it's a meme, it's everything else. Like, I think there's a value to this. Like, we have to call attention to this. We have to police it. But like, if that's all we're doing for the outside person looking in, like, whoa, wait, why is this so bad? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand the meme. Like, I don't get the joke. I don't get the, wait, okay, I kind of hear this, but I don't understand this other part. People could be taking a little bit of a different approach to, well, here's what you may be thinking about. And I don't know what this instructor was thinking when they said this. Maybe they were thinking this, maybe they were thinking that, just kind of going out a little bit more objectively than this constant attack. Because maybe somebody on that side that's completely anti-2A or anti-firearms or whatever looks at it and goes, well, that's kind of a good point. And at least they're admitting and being objective about the bad things that are happening over there in their little world, right? In their little sea of righteousness with, their firearms and their Second Amendment or whatever else. I think there's some value to that as well. But the understanding who's listening, like, if you're truly trying to build more reach on whatever platform, and you were talking about the 30 videos that goes down as the things being tested, why do you think it got to 1 million views versus only got to 1,000 views? Whatever. Probably because the greater majority of the audience wasn't interested in what you were saying, or you didn't say anything that drew them in. Like those 1,000 views, they're probably mostly your buddies, right? They're your kind. But in order for it to pass to the next level, it's got to reach the other kind. And when it reaches the other kind, it also comes with the hate and the bullshit. And that's part of the process. Is you have to accept this. And firing back with negative comments or whatever, like, it's probably best just not to say anything at all. That's what my mother taught me. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. 99.9% of the time, I'm not even going to respond. Like, just let it go. It actually drives the algorithm because their kind, whoever that is, will jump in and support them and then support them again. And it kind of goes viral. I mean, there's things that I posted a month ago that I'm just like, Jesus Christ, people won't let this go. And then somebody will jump in and go, oh, there's always something from the peanut gallery. Maybe here's another way to look at it. Somebody logical will come to it. I don't know if they're supporting me or they're not supporting me, but it just keeps going and going and going.
It's a little secret. Just ask them question, what made you feel this way? Because then they'll comment again and you just doubled your engagement.
Yeah, that's a favorite strategy. Or just kind of, again, posing a question with a little ambiguity. But it's also like, I consider questioning skillfully, like, do I really want to know the answer to this? Or am I asking this so that they come up with the answer on their own? Or do I already know the answer to this and I just want to hear if they're going to say it or not? I never ask a question I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
With no plan.
Yeah, I'm joking.
That's
ignoring is the best, but
generally speaking, it is. Yeah. Unless you, again, there's a strategy to, let's see how long we can keep this fucking person going. Like, this is, sometimes I do get some satisfaction out of that. Like how pushing the buttons.
What's the best is as your audience grows, you'll see your own people that know what you would answer, just go to war for you.
Yep.
And that's the best thing that can happen.
Yeah, it feels good when somebody jumps in to defend you or whatever. But at the same time, I don't need that, and I'm not looking for that. So, and I think a lot of people on the platform, particularly in the space, are like, because you'll get called out for that. Oh, now you're coming to this guy's rescue. He needs his, there's always, somebody's always going to find negative in that. But there's some logic that comes to it. At some point.
Yeah, if it's ridiculous enough, somebody else is going to have the time and the want and the need
to continue to drive the ridiculousness. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The lead up to this conversation was that I see a lot of people getting frustrated. I see there seems to be right now a little bit more of a negative energy kind of happening. I think people are feeling a little bit more under attack from a lot of different angles, whether it be their finance, whether it be their government, whether it be their family, whether it be their people on the internet, the internet warriors or whatever else.
They're just reciprocating that.
Yeah, and it's
that negative energy.
Yeah, man. And where we go with that? Like, where do we take it? I was a little tired. Like about a week ago, I was like, I'm not getting on this thing at all. I responded to a few DMs, but I only posted like the Friday and the Monday and the Wednesday, or the Monday and the Friday drop that week. I didn't post anything else. I just needed to be away from it because it was just it was hurting me. Yeah. Like, I was just like, man, this is harming me. like from a mental health perspective. And I was finding myself like not finding really many positive things to say, and then stretching to try to find something productive to add. And I'm like, man, this is not a good place for me to be. Like, if it's not organic, then why am I here? And I think that's another piece of this is, trying to be organically, like genuinely trying to find out what people want to hear about, talk to them through it, and again, and have this dialogue or this open discussion. And people are doing a good job with it. There are folks out there that are doing a really good job with it, but I see a lot of people that are just like, oh, let me put up another fancy shooting video, or, let me talk shit about this guy, or let me just do another fancy shooting video and in the caption just talk about the product. Like, because all I know how to do is fancy shooting videos. So all I'm going to do is like, I'm going to talk about this thing that I'm using in the fancy shooting video. But it's no difference. The content's not different. You haven't added any value. You're clearly representing somebody else's product, or you are trying to be interesting about talking about somebody else's product, whether they're behind it or with you or partnering with you or not. But it's still the same video. Going back to what you were saying, Gio, was like, what are you telling me with this? Because I'm not getting it. Who's this for? Is this for you? Or is this for me? And social media is a give and take. So some of it is selfishly, I'll put stuff up there. But, on occasion, but usually it's just like to create some conversation, create some dialogue. That's what the show is. I appreciate you guys coming down and having this talk with me. Like, I thought it would be just interesting to have some different perspective. Then also kind of come at it from the back end of like what's really going on behind the scenes. Like, who are you guys? Eli, you've been on this show before. We've had some conversation. Like, what value could this bring to people? I'm hoping like, as people are like trying to kind of rebuild, like, oh man, like I'm really trying to make a go at this, provide valuable information, whether it's from an instructor, product, service or product perspective, big company, small company, whatever, to think about things a little bit differently because times are changing. And it's clear you can't do the same things you were doing before. So doing that and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity, as they say. And if you're becoming insane or angry at this point, that means you're not paying attention. Well, that's not true. If you're surprised, then you're not paying attention. And there are things that you can do in setting up like you said, taking a page or a book from some of these people that a lot of people clown on, these online coaches and the things that they do and how their funnels work and how they drive traffic and what the flow looks like and how they divide up their tribe and how they communicate with those people within the tribe. And, you've got, your super loyal people and your people that are just kind of just there to be spectators. And you got some people that aren't quite sure about you yet. Like, how are you talking to those people? How are you engaging those people? And then again, how do you continue to drive your awareness of your brand across multiple platforms? I see people really scrambling like, oh, and now I need a YouTube channel. Okay, well, if you got on YouTube 10 years ago, it's a lot different than it is now. Like your ability to build a channel is much different. You're a very small fish in a very, very massive pond. And at some level, there is some formula to this. You need to figure out your own for what it is that you're trying to do. You can talk to guys like Eli and Gio, and they can tell you like your video needs to be this long for this particular format, needs to be in this thing. This is what we know. Punch this in, punch this out, do this caption, don't do that caption, whatever. Those are tactics once you have your strategy. But simply just using tactics all the time, it's actually probably should have come up before, like using or pretending that your tactics are going to work without understanding the strategy first, or more importantly, the fundamentals.
The mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. Like you're way out of your league. You're way out of your league, and it's probably going to end poorly. So you certainly won't be successful. You might get lucky, right? You might get lucky, but you'll never know what to go back to when the luck runs out, and eventually it will.
Yeah.
Start with a great thumbnail for this episode.
It's on you. No. Yeah, I would say, our real mission is just helping legit coaches figure this whole content thing out. Because there's too many charlatans, that have the budget, regardless of where it's from, to be able to win on, and put out content. And what we really need is the power of media to be put back into people's hands that can understand it, use it to make the world a better place. Like there are systems, strategy and tactics that you just mentioned that can be implemented. And we want to help legit people get that under control so they can do more of what they love and they can actually build a sustainable business being good people. They don't have to, do things that are unethical to try to bring home the bread. So, video marketing is everything. It's not like, it's so important. And that's why we're doing it. It's not like we love being behind a computer for 12 hours a day. But at the end of the day, like whoever owns a lot of the media, whoever can control it in a sense, controls the way people think. And so, our goal is we're trying to build something and bring a little bit of that back into this honest, perspective and figure it out and help people that have the best intentions in mind. So thanks for bringing us on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. 8482 Media on Instagram is where to go. I tag them in basically everything that goes up. So you can find them there. It's an easy link. Those guys, the guys behind the scenes, I think the honesty piece is the most important part, right? That's the way I look at it, and bringing honest conversations and dialogue that really do have the best intentions to make an impact, whether big or small, was the goal of the podcast in the first place. And so, you putting out there, like, our goal is to help coaches be better at this. Like, that's what I see the missing pieces. And like, there's so many good things about this industry or about this space. Same with fitness and things like that. And so many good people, so many good messages, so many good products. And there's we have a little bit of a battle because of the control mechanisms that allow some of those messages to get out there, but not, knowledge is power, right? And understanding how to work them at whatever, and understanding how to pivot, as the word was used before, and understanding how to navigate through that to continue to bring the conversation. Like, that's, I think, where people should be spending a good amount of their time, maybe a little less range time and a little more time understanding how to communicate. And I don't mean like we're communicating, but communicate so that it can be meaningful and impactful. That is, getting it out there without getting it shut down, without getting it slammed, trying to avoid the controversy where you can, where it makes sense, trying to make sure you get that message out there. We could all benefit by that, particularly if you are a staunch supporter of your Second Amendment rights, particularly now. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, we are in a battle to get a positive message out about this and why things are important to us as gun owners, as American citizens, as peaceable and responsible gun owners in the United States. And we are being thrashed from a messaging perspective. We're just being thrashed. It's bad. No matter what platform you're on, it doesn't look very good. Even those that say they're pro 2A, if all they're doing is posting the latest video about the OIS or, what happened in downtown, whatever downtown city and whatever place in the United States, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. That's not the message we need. Like, even good guys getting, winning against bad guys with guns, that's not the right message. Like, it's a message. It's not the message. It's something to look back to and go, hey, like that, this is an example of, for this particular case, but that is such a small percentage of, the bigger thing. So yeah, I appreciate that, man. So again, like, you coaches out there, think differently, think differently about how you're communicating, and then the tools that are available. And 8482 Media, if you need some help, these guys are here. So long as they don't give you more time than me, then it's fine.
Yeah, we're busy.
Yeah.
So.
I get that. I feel privileged to have you guys down the studio. I know how busy you are. So thanks for sharing your time with me today. And we'll see you guys real soon.
All right.